Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Are we going to do line by line translation? Okay. Reading from Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of ISKCON, chapter 17, texts 26 and 27. Sadbhave sadhu bhave cha sad ityetat prayujyate prashaste karmani tata sat chabda partha yujyate yagye tapasi dane cha stiti sad iti chochate karma chaiva tadarthiyam sad ityeva bhitiyate. So you can go and read everything. Here towards the end of the 17th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna is discussing the words Om, Tat and Sat, which combined together indicate the absolute truth and which are used in sacrifice and many Vedic functions. The word Sat is commonly found to indicate that which is eternal or meaningful or good or proper. The different words are derived from this word Sat. Sattva gun means the mode of goodness. There are three modes of material nature: Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Tamas means that is the lowest mode of nature. In a person in the mode of ignorance, he is completely illusioned, prone to intoxication, sleep and so on. In Rajagun, people are very active for sense gratification. But Sattva gun means a person acts detached from the endeavor for sense gratification. He acts for a higher purpose in life. Another important word derived from Sat is the word Sadhu. Sadbhave, Sadhu bhave cha. Sadhu means one who is in connection with Sat. So that word is generally understood to mean a holy man. But the real meaning of Sadhu is one who is a devotee of Krishna. Because Sat means the absolute truth. And Sadhu means one who is following the absolute truth. So anyway, this Bhagavad-gita is recommending us to be Sat. The opposite of Sat is Asat. Asat means off. I missed the point. This material world is Asat, Achit, Nirananda. The nature of spiritual existence is Sat Chit Ananda. That means eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. But this material world, everything here is temporary, full of ignorance and full of misery. Everything is temporary means that everything in this material world, it has a beginning and an end. Now we are spiritual living beings by nature. That means we are eternal by nature. We do not like to die. Why? Why is it we don't like to die? The atheists say that this body is simply a combination of chemicals and nothing more. But if that is so, then why should we fear death? Not only humans, but all species of life fear death. Even the tiny ant who we consider to be insignificant is not at all pleased if he feels any danger. Now, if we are simply a combination of chemicals, then where do the emotions such as fear come from? We don't find in a laboratory, if you want to mix some acid with an alkali, we don't find the acid protesting, please don't mix me up. Nor, if we are simply a bunch of chemicals, is it very logical that we should feel any fear of death. If simply death means another chemical a transformation of chemicals, then why should there be anything wrong with death? Why is there murder as being illegal? Just like if some crazy man gets some chair and hacks it to pieces with an axe, well, he's a crazy man. But if he hacks a human being to pieces with an axe, then he's a murderer. So what's the difference? Why is it illegal in human society to kill people by hacking them with an axe, and not to, if you have some chair in your apartment and you hack it to pieces, well, you're just crazy, that's all, but it's not illegal. It's you can be taken to court and said, did you hack that person to death? Yeah. So what? It's just a bunch of chemicals. What difference does it make? Or someone said, oh, my mother died. So what? It's just, it's just a bunch of chemicals, that's all. Actually, there's an interesting story I'll tell. There's, in England, there's the, what's it called? The Humanitarian Society? Humanistic Society. The British Humanist Association. So they have some books espousing the so-called philosophy of atheism.
In oni imajo neke knjige
espousing, propagating, preaching,
oni imajo neke knjige,
explaining.
Ki razlagajo ateistično filozofijo.
So I was thinking to get some of those books just to see what nonsense they're saying. But they have a rule, you can't get the book unless you're a member of their society. Yeah. So I couldn't go myself because I didn't have any pants, or I didn't want to go like this. They might suspect that I'm not a real atheist. So I had one of my friends, devotees, who had a little bit long hair and some pants and shirt. And he went there to register as a member and get the Bible of Atheism, or whatever the book was called. And he found an atmosphere of deep depression at the British Humanist Association. The secretary told him that our leader has died. We're all so sad. So he was thinking of saying, well, so what? He died, so what? It's just, different chemical combination, that's all. But anyway, they were very pleased to find there was a new member. He said it was just like when you join the temple, they become all enthusiastic and, we got a new member of our religion. Anyway, he got the book. I never got to read it because, somewhere between London and Russia and India, somewhere Aeroflot lost it for me, so I wasn't able to be converted into an atheist. But they are making a philosophy that everything is asat, there's nothing beyond this. That what is in this world is reality. Beyond this, there is no reality. Typical so-called rationalism. That we only believe what we see. The basic principle of rationalism is irrational. Why should you think that only that which exists, which you can see? Rather, it's actually a very childish idea. That most probably there are many, many things which you can't see or perceive. It's rational to accept that there may be many levels of existence which we don't have direct perception of. Just like you don't see electricity, and it wasn't so-called discovered until fairly recently in human history. Does that mean it didn't exist because there was no perception of it? But they say we have no proof of life after death, therefore it doesn't exist. Because they don't have experience of spiritual existence, they take it as an axiom that there is no spiritual existence. And even if others tell them about spiritual existence, they say, well, that's just your imagination. It's not very rational or reasonable. Just like if I say I go to India, and where did you come from? I came from Ljubljana. Where's that? I never heard of it. I don't believe there's such a place. I never went there. Why should I believe you? So there's so many people who have had spiritual experiences. Simply to deny that because you haven't had it is irrational. There are so many great personalities in history. Here, Krishna is speaking Bhagavad-gita.
Tukaj Krishna govori Bhagavad-gita.
Now this Bhagavad-gita has been deliberated upon by so many intelligent people, considered, philosophized upon. In fact, we find that the system of Vedic philosophy, the different systems of Vedic philosophy, the very beginning point is far more advanced than that of what is called Western philosophy. In Vedic philosophy, the first point of understanding is that the body is temporary, but the soul is sat, eternal, and that we are simply transmigrating from body to body. according to our karma. That in modern physics they discovered that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So that is true on the subtle platform also. For everything you do, there is a reaction. It is not simply by chance that someone is born in a rich family, good-looking, intelligent, and someone else is born in poverty-stricken and ugly, miserable in so many ways. If we say by chance, that simply means we don't know, because everything has a cause. Even Einstein said that, I don't believe that God is playing dice with the universe. If, as according to some ignorant people say, everything is going on by chance, then why are they busy studying science? Science means to study the laws of the universe. There are so many complex laws discovering all the, which they show how the universe is regulated. So after studying all these laws, and then you say, how does it come into being all by chance? Does it make any sense? If there's so much order within nature, how can you conclude that it's simply come into being by chance? Wherever we see order, there is intelligence to make that order. Just like this sweater, it's a very simple thing, but it's made to a design. If it's too big or too small, then it doesn't serve its function properly. Or if you forget to put a hole at the top, then you can't get into it. Or if you do some avant-garde design with, instead of having the arm here, you have it here, then unless you change your body and put your arm down here, take it off and sew it on again, you can't fit into it. So it requires a certain kind of intelligence even to make a woolen sweater. So what to speak of the whole universe, which is so complex, how can they say that it's simply by chance? Everything about atheism is irrational. The spiritual existence, that is a fact, but it is subtle. It cannot be understood simply by our gross senses, nor even by simply by intellectual adjustment. Sat, or that which is eternal, is of the nature of the soul. It requires a spiritual methodology to understand it. Every academic discipline has its own particular methodology to understand it. For everything you do, it requires a certain methodology. So if you're doing mathematics, you may require you need a ruler. Or say you were doing some geometrical drawings, you need then a ruler and T-square, so many things. If you want to cook bread, you need different things. If you bring spoons and bowls and this mixing wheel, and that's not for mathematics, that's for making bread. If you want to study history, then you have to consult old manuscripts and inscriptions. If you want to study chemistry, you have to get so many different chemicals and Bunsen burners and tripods and so many things. So there's a different methodology for every sphere of knowledge. So to understand that which is sat or eternal, a particular methodology is required. If you say, I don't believe in the soul because I don't see it, you have to get trained in the method to see it. So many people have seen the eternal. So many highly intelligent philosophers. So if you simply reject, I haven't seen, that shows your own ignorance. The method to see spiritual reality is Shuteikshanā pantha. You have to see through the ears. You have to hear from spiritually realized authorities who will teach you the path. Even to understand anything in this material world, you have to be trained to understand what you're seeing. Just like if a child sees a microphone for the first time, he won't understand what it is. Someone has to explain to him or show him by putting the mic and letting him speak in it, how it amplifies sound. If you just see it and no one explains to you, a child may take it as a toy. It's good for maybe beating another child with on the head, or I could use it to dig up the mud. There are different things you could do with it. I mean, you could break peanut shells with it. There are so many things you could do with a microphone. But you have to hear and been shown what is the purpose of this instrument. It is to amplify sound. So everything requires training. It's not simply a matter of seeing. If you see the sun, you may think, well, it's some kind of spotlight hanging out in the sky, maybe a kilometer or two away. How do you know it's not? You simply believe the scientists who tell you it's 93 million miles or however many kilometers away that is. They tell us there are spots on the sun and so much information we have about the sun. How do you know? How do I know? We simply accept the statements of the scientists, at least some people do. Personally, I doubt pretty much everything they say, because one day they say one thing and another day they say something else. But the general point is that we have to hear from authorities to understand. That applies even about a gross object like a microphone. So what to speak of the subtle knowledge of the soul and God? That can be understood. There is a process to understand it. But that requires spiritual methodology. You can't expect to bring your Bunsen burner and understand God. You have to follow the spiritual process. So the first stage in spiritual understanding is to hear and understand that the body is temporary, but I am eternal. Because of ignorance of this simple fact, the whole human society is suffering in ignorance. Modern human society is simply endeavoring after satisfaction of the bodily demands. And even though there's so much intelligence in the world, it's all misapplied intelligence. Because people don't understand the basic fact that the body is temporary, but I am the soul, I am eternal. So the first thing to understand is that I am eternal. And then we have to understand what is our position in eternity. As long as we don't act on the eternal platform, then we have to remain on the temporary platform. That means we have to take body after body after body. So spiritual understanding begins by understanding we have to get out of this cycle of birth and death. That we can attain to when we understand what is our position in eternity. That we are eternal spirit souls and we are eternally the servant of the Supreme Eternal, or Krishna. In our Krishna conscious movement, you'll find devotees are singing, dancing, not just singing anything. There are so many songs, but we specifically sing the names of Krishna. This is the spiritual process for situating the soul in eternity. By chanting the names of Krishna, this eternal sound of Krishna, we become resituated in our true eternal position. So that which is sat or eternal, that is naturally associated also with that which is chit or full of knowledge, and ananda, that which is full of bliss. Chit means conscious or possessed of knowledge. In this material world, we are conscious but not conscious. Something like a zombie. Means we have consciousness, but we're not really conscious of who we are. Perverted consciousness. Just like we may be thinking, I am Slovenian or I am Croatian, but you're not. Now, this may not be very pleasing to the nationalistic spirit, but you're only in the body for a short time, and then you're going to get born somewhere else. Of course, you might be born in Slovenia again, but you won't. It's not that you'll eternally be born in Slovenia. And even if you're born in Slovenia again, there's no guarantee you're going to be born as a human being. You could be born as a dog or a cat. So we're not conscious of our eternal position. We're thinking, I am this body and I should act for sense enjoyment. Even though people are intelligent, their intelligence is misused. And therefore we see big advertising industries for Coca-Cola and so many useless things. No doubt it requires great intelligence to organize a huge company all over the world and cheat people into spending money on something which is completely useless. But this is an example of misused intelligence. The real use of intelligence should be to understand that I'm suffering in this material world. I don't want to suffer. What do I have to do to get out of this miserable condition? What do I have to do to come to the position of ananda or bliss? Everyone wants to be happy. That is an axiom. Even some people take pleasure in being miserable. That's even one kind of perverted happiness. Everyone wants to be happy, but how can you be happy in a place where you're destined to die? Maybe you know throughout the world that in countries where they have capital punishment, there's a strange ritual that usually the execution is scheduled for early morning. So the night before they'll say, what would you like to eat? Whatever you like, we'll provide you. So if you're going to die the next morning, how can you get enthusiastic about eating? This is wonderful. Bring some more. This is so great. It's not even going to have time to get out the other side. So you're not going to have any enthusiasm. You're going to die. So how can you take pleasure in that? So an intelligent person, he sees, where's the pleasure in this material world? For some days we can run around here and there and think I'm happy. But gradually the body slows down, old age sets in, teeth start falling out, your hair start falling out, the functions of digestion, sight and hearing all diminish. They're all signs that death is coming. So someone who's intelligent, he thinks, where's the happiness here? You may try to squeeze some kind of happiness out of your fading away body, but where is the happiness? If you have to die, where is the happiness? Just like if you're going to, where is the happiness? You get a big house, a big car, but tomorrow you're going to be dead. So where's the happiness? So if you consider real happiness must be on the eternal platform. Therefore, a person who is actually conscious, he must endeavor for that happiness which is not limited by death. It's not limited by time. Therefore, to take to spiritual life on the platform of Satchidananda, eternity, real knowledge, and real bliss, that is the only intelligent thing to do in human life. Real intelligence means to endeavor to come to the eternal platform of bliss. Outside of that, all endeavors are simply foolishness. You may be very intelligent in one sense, but it's a foolish, perverted intelligence if you don't use your intelligence to understand who am I and what is the purpose of life. Unfortunately, in the modern age, although there is so much intelligence manifested as technological development, but real intelligence to inquire into the nature of ultimate reality is practically zero. There are so many educational institutions, but they're simply producing educated fools. You see, people are very proud of becoming doctors and lawyers and philosophers and engineers. But if you don't even know the most basic point of spiritual knowledge, then you're simply an educated fool. If you don't know what happens after death, then what is the use of all your knowledge? For modern society, they say, don't think, why should you think about that? Just live now. What foolishness. You're not going to live forever. Human society must inquire into this intelligence. Into this question, what happens after death? Without that basic philosophical question, then they're simply like animals. The animal is only concerned where I can get some food, where I can get some sex. Only in the human form of life do we have the opportunity to inquire what happens after death. The whole endeavor of human society should be based on this point, how to get free from the suffering of repeated birth and death. Unfortunately, in modern society, they consider this unimportant. It's a very, very foolish society. So this Krishna conscious movement is endeavoring to bring sanity to the modern world in the form of genuine spiritual knowledge. It's not a dogma that I believe in Christianity or I believe in Islam, and it's not just like some dogma. But we should understand clearly, scientifically, what is the nature of eternity? What is the nature of the soul in eternity? What is our spiritual position? We have so many endeavors in human society for the material comforts of the human being, and so many facilities for the mental and intellectual development of the human being. But in terms of spiritual development, the modern society is extremely weak. The best they have to offer is some dogma. Believe in the Bible. Why? Well, you just have to believe it or you go to hell. So who is going to accept such a thing? There should be some philosophy. If we're talking about the highest subject, God, then there should be some understanding, not simply dogma. Even to understand that which is material, there is some explanation given. So for the highest topic of understanding, there should be some explanation also. So in Bhagavad-gita, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth himself, gives a succinct synopsis of the understanding of the Absolute Truth. Succinct means concise. Synopsis means summary. That is more elaborate. What Krishna has spoken concisely is elaborately explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. This is scientific knowledge of God, knowing which one can be liberated from the condition of birth and death. So we invite you, all of you,
Zato se vas pozivamo.
Generally we see, even though this country is quite small, but it seems that there is quite a high level of educational development. People seem to be quite intellectual here. So we invite you to apply your intelligence to understanding the highest subject matter. Please apply your intelligence to understand the descriptions of the absolute truth as given in this Vedic literature, without understanding which your intellectual development is simply a row of zeros. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals... You don't have to be a big intellectual to give the answer to that. So in modern society we have engineering and technology and nuclear power and so many things. But without knowledge of the absolute truth, it all comes to zero and everyone is dissatisfied. And without understanding the essential subject matter of who we are, what is our eternal nature, then the whole development of modern civilization is just one big zero. So you have to add that one thing which brings everything to life. Just like if you have a row of zeros and you put a 1 at the front, then it becomes a big number. So we see in modern society there are so many educated and intelligent people, but they have some qualities, but how those qualities should be used, for what their intellectual development should be, towards which it should be directed, they don't know. And therefore, despite so much intellectual development, there is so much dissatisfaction and confusion in human society. So just this one thing is needed, the one that will make the zeros meaningful, and that is knowledge of our existential being, who we are, what is the purpose of life. That is described elaborately in this Vedic literature. So please take that. Now it's translated in your language, the highest knowledge of spiritual life. So please take that. Apply it in your life. Come to the platform of eternity. And that way you will be saved from the ignorance of modern society and come to the eternal platform of transcendental bliss, which is otherwise known as Krishna consciousness. Alright, well, I could speak a lot longer. I have a habit of doing so, but I have some time restriction here. So I'll finish there. I have just one more thing to say, namely, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now we're going to have a practical demonstration of how to understand the absolute truth in the form of food. How to eat your way into spiritual consciousness. It may not sound very rational, but it works. Hare Krishna. Then we're going to have, for all the, if there are any staunch atheists, rationalists, or whatever there, we can have some discussion of these points. Or if there are some people who would like to be saved from atheism and rationalism, we can also discuss how to get saved from that. In the meantime, we invite you to practical demonstration of Bhakti Yoga by taking Krishna Prasadam.